Bhaktivedanta Mana in the UK, our headquarters. And she is the first female president of Bhaktivedanta Mana. And she's also Srila Prabhupada's disciple. So a brief background of her journey, she actually she graduated with a degree in photography from Rochester Institute of Technology in New York. And in 1971, she traveled to India, where she met Srila Prabhupada. She read his Bhagavad Gita as it is, and she became his student. And as a photographer, she traveled with Srila Prabhupada and photographed him and his students in India, Europe, and the USA. Mother Visaka is also a writer. She's written numerous magazines, articles, in particular articles for the BTG, as well as a number of books. And she also assists her husband, Yadubar Prabhu, in making documentary films. And Mother Visaka loves meeting people, and she attempts to offer them some aspect of Srila Prabhupada's many gifts. So even though Mother Visaka is a senior elevated Vaishnavi, she's very easy to approach and talk to. So please don't hesitate to ask her any questions during this talk. And so thank you, Visaka Prabhu, for coming on board. And I'd like to give a brief introduction to Radhika Kripa Prabhu. So for all of you that don't know Radhika Kripa Prabhu, I'm sure you do, but I'll give an introduction to you about her anyway. She was born in an affluent Sikh family, and she married into a Hindu business family. And by profession, she was a successful fashion designer until 1991. And then she was introduced to IskCon 22 years ago and was initiated by His Grace Gopal Krishna Swami 21 years ago. And so for the last 19 years, she's been traveling, and she's an online preacher. She's written a poetry book, and she's also an author of the book Vaishnava Teachings and Sikhism, which has been translated in 5 languages. She's also penned articles for the BTG on an international and domestic level. And most recently, last year, during the lockdown, she distributed single-handedly online 450 Srimad Bhagavatam sets during the Bhadra campaign last year. That was more than all of us, all of our congregation in the UK for Bhaktivedanta Mana. And she also distributed 5,500 Bhagavad Gitas in December during the December marathon. So it's absolutely amazing to have 2 senior Vaishnavis here. So I will let Radhika Kripa Prabhu take the lead with this session, and she can, Radhika Kripa Prabhu will ask questions to Visaka Prabhu, and all of you can join, and it will be an interactive session, so please do all ask questions as we go along. Thank you.
So thank you, Guru Shakti. I welcome you, Visaka Prabhu. I'm really very much obliged that you accepted my invitation and you're here with us. It's wonderful to have you here, and your esteemed presence will actually, it will enhance the glory of this session, and the participants will definitely benefit. They are joining from India, they are joining from all over the parts of the world, other parts of the world as well, and they will benefit from your association. And really, I would love to hear from you now about your journey with Srila Prabhupada and your views on the big distribution, how you can help us in that in the moment of distress. So first let me do the pranam to you. Vancha kalpataru bhaksha kripa sindhu bhaivicha patita nam bhavane bhyo Vaishnav bhyo namo nama. Vaishnav Thakur ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Radhika Kripa Prabhu, for inviting me to join you in your illustrious assembly of devotees. I'm very honored to be with you, and I'm really delighted that you're so actively distributing Krishna consciousness in the form of your talks and distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. It's very inspiring
Thank you.
for us to see your enthusiasm. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Please.
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pasyat Sadesha Tarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Upataru Bhaksha, Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namah.
So, as far as my journey to Prabhupada's service, I was born in a family of atheists. Both my mother and my father were atheists, although my father was raised in the Jewish tradition and was quite actively engaged in the tradition, and my mother in the Roman Catholic tradition, and also was very active as she grew up in that tradition. When they both came of age, independently of each other, they felt that their respective religions had so many rituals, but no substance, no philosophy, no reason behind the rituals. And so thinking like that, they both gave up religion, and they raised my brother and me as atheists. My whole life growing up, I never went inside any church or temple or synagogue or religious institute. And not only that, but due to the influence of my parents, we actively thought that religion was for people that could not face hard facts of life, that after death, there was nothing, you just died, and there was no purpose to life beyond enjoying oneself, being comfortable, and so forth. So I had a long way to go from that philosophy, if you like, that way of thinking, to come to Krishna consciousness. And I was not looking for spiritual life. I was quite disappointed by whatever little glimmers of spiritual life I saw growing up. I saw not only that it was rituals with no substance, but also so often there was fanaticism and dogmatism and sometimes violence, as we're seeing now in the Middle East. Deadly violence, and so it was not something in my heart. But at the same time, I was very active in my chosen profession, photography, and I achieved some little success in that profession, and I could see that people who had far greater success than I had in terms of fame, in terms of money, in terms of intellectual power, had a dissatisfaction, a very serious dissatisfaction in their lives. So that really left me questioning, if I go along my chosen path and I'm successful, no reason to think that I'll be any more satisfied than these people who are far greater than me in success, and yet have this very deep sense of dissatisfaction. So although I was not interested in spiritual life, I did have very serious, one could say, unanswered questions about the purpose of life and how to actually feel fulfilled in life and happy. So it was with that my then boyfriend, now husband, invited me to go to India. He was doing his master's thesis on the Hare Krishna people. We had met in college, studying photography, both. He was a graduate student, and he decided to do his master's thesis on the Hare Krishna people. So in 1970, he went with the first group. He didn't go with them. He followed the first group of disciples who went with Srila Prabhupada to India. They went in September, and he came in December, a few months later. And he met up with them in Surat. And from Surat, he would write me letters about what he was experiencing. And it was just astonishing to read those letters, because the mayor of Surat decided to close the schools and factories of the town so that the people could read the newspapers and see where the Harinam, Srila Prabhupada's Harinam party was going. And they would line the streets and worship the devotees as they performed Harinam through the streets of Surat. They would give them garlands and offer them incense and ghee lamps. And there were so many invitations to dine at different people's homes to take prasadam. And so he was writing this to me, and it was just the opposite of what I had seen the devotees experience in New York City, where people would say to them, "Get a job." They were very derogatory people in New York City and had no understanding of what the devotees were doing or why It was just so, could say, although very colorful and sometimes musically attractive, but still they were not well received. Whereas in Surat, they were worshipped as exalted personalities. So that was curious. And on my friend John's invitation, I went to India in March of 1971. And that just coincidentally happened to be when there was the very first Pandal program the devotees had organized in Bombay at Cross Maidan. This is the same
Yeah.
program where Radhanath Swami
Yeah.
was one of the personalities in the audience. And so I had that experience. I was exposed to Srila Prabhupada, and I had a lot of resistance, as I say, but that was just an overwhelming experience. I did write this story in a memoir called 5 Years,
Yeah.
11 months, a lifetime of unexpected love.
Yeah. That.
So I tried to explain that trajectory from atheism to theism. I really wanted to explore that, so I tried to do that in those pages.
Yeah. Your journey is extraordinary. Like it's extremes, two extremes that were joined together when you. That's atheism to theism. That's wonderful. And many would come to know today. And I've read about your book. I would be soon getting it now. And one more thing, Prabhuji, because you've come to the management also. So again, you won Prabhupada's heart. You were her photographer. You accompanied him everywhere, wherever he went. I believe that. In Europe, in America, you were photographing him. And then the beautiful movie that has come up. I had a chance to speak to your husband also. He called me a few months back, and when he read my article in the Dandavats, and then he wanted my group to watch the movie, and I asked my group, everybody, to watch the movie and give me their comments. And those comments I had to give him back the feedback. I gave that, and everybody loves the movie. I've seen it here. I saw it in Dubai also. Yeah. Please carry on. Tell me something about the movie. How was it? How that idea came up to you, and how did you plan to do it? With both of you plan to do it?
Yeah, years ago, we made a movie called Your Ever Well-Wisher about Srila Prabhupada's life and teachings. And that was in the early 80s. And it was really for devotees, an audience that already had a background in Krishna consciousness. So at this point, we wanted to make a movie that would introduce complete newcomers to Srila Prabhupada's life and teachings. And so it was with that in mind that we made the Hare Krishna film. And it was by far, it took us the longest of any film. We've made about 9 films over the years, my husband and I. And it was also by far the most expensive, but also I would say the most rewarding, because I feel that according to our capabilities, at least, we did introduce complete newcomers to Srila Prabhupada's glories.
That's right. The justice has been done to the movie. You have really worked hard. It's a beautiful movie. It comprises everything.
I must say we had a team of young people that really helped us, because they could do the technology that's somehow out of the reach of people my age. It's just not in our blood, but they're so good, the young people. And they also had very fresh ideas that they added to it, so that their input was invaluable.
Yes, we can see that. And you've taken the role of a president of the Watford, the most prestigious temple that was gifted by George Harrison again, and it's a beautiful temple. And how you took this role, and how was it? How you accepted this role? Like, how did it come to you? How did it fall in your lap? This role.
Yeah, after we finished just coincidentally again, or you could say by a higher arrangement, whichever way you'd like to look at it. But I completed my book, which was an embarrassingly long project, more or less at the same time that the film was completed. And I was thinking to myself, honestly, I didn't tell anyone, but I was thinking to myself, it's been over 40 years and I've been doing the same service, which is photography and writing and filmmaking. And it'd be interesting for me to do something different. I had no idea what. It was just a thought, a very clear thought, but it was just a thought. And not long after that, I got a letter from one of the trustees at Bhaktivedanta Manor saying that Shuji Dharma Prabhu was not going to recover from his illness and would I consider taking this service. And I was just stunned. I couldn't talk about it for 2 or 3 days. I was just flabbergasted. Because first of all, I was not aware that Shuji Dharma Prabhu would not recover. I thought he would get treatment and recover and resume his service. So I was not aware of that. And even if I had been aware, I never would have associated myself with such a service because it was so far from what I had been doing. But anyway, after 2 or 3 days, when I could finally, mention it to people that this letter had come, I thought, this was my desire to do some service that was out of the ordinary for me. So let me try. So I came. They had interview series, and they had me do certain things and meet the devotees, and they took a risk and tried, and so somehow or other I'm trying my best. I would not say that I'm particularly qualified, but I am trying my best, and I do remember every day that devotional service is susukam. It's supposed to be joyfully performed. So that thought really helps me in the service.
Fortunately, I met you there. I was there at that time when you came. You had just joined in when I was there in February, and you're an excellent Vaishnavi, an excellent devotee, and I really looked forward to you. It was beautiful meeting you there, and the way you were among the devotees, they had so much confidence in you, and I appreciate you a lot. I'm a really big fan of you, and I would like you now.
We're looking forward to your returning to Bhaktivedanta Manor.
Surely.
But in the meantime, we do on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we do have devotees give class online, if you would consider giving class.
As you
online.
say, whenever you would like to, I'm always open for that, for this service. And I would like you to now boost the morale of the people. Those who have joined me, and we are in Delhi, in India especially, we are facing a lot of bad situation. It's risen up here, as you know, and we are losing many people. And many in the group here also with me, some have joined in. And many are on the YouTube also watching you. They have lost their near and dear ones. And we really want them to understand that what the Krishna's arrangement is and why this is happening. These questions are always coming up, why this trauma is there, why this pain is there. So I would like now to hear from you also. They have been listening from me, but I would like you to now enlighten us on this.
That we find in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that those who are in knowledge, they understand that this world is made of birth, death, old age, and disease.
Yeah.
That is just one of the symptoms of being in the material world, that we will experience birth, death, old age, and disease. To Kalayana Sasvatam, it's a temporary place, this material world. And even if one says, okay, it's temporary, but I'll make it comfortable, there's no question of being comfortable in the long run, because old age, disease, and death are coming for all of us. The death rate is 100%. But the great fortune that we have by the grace of Srila Prabhupada's teachings and Krishna's teachings is that we are not this body. In one sense, the body is always dead. It's simply matter. What gives it apparent life is the spirit soul within the body. It's like if you have a puppet, a hand puppet, is just lying there limp. You put your hand inside, and then there's so many movement of the head and the arms and so forth. But the puppet itself is simply lifeless. So similarly, this body is actually lifeless. It's the presence of the Atma, the soul within the body, that gives it apparent life. And when that Atma leaves, you can see what the body actually is. The body is a corpse. So this knowledge is very, very helpful for us. Does not minimize our grief at losing a loved one. We should not pretend to eliminate that grief. That grief is very natural. Even Arjuna grieved grievously when he lost his son in the battle of Kurukshetra. And not to do that would be very unnatural and hard-hearted. So we do grieve. And yet at the same time, we know that the person, the Atma, is eternal. And if the person has lived a life in Sattva-gun, they will go on to a better future. And I think all of us here are aware of this Sattva-gun, that if we have the proper diet, we have the proper habits, we mold our consciousness to be closer to God, closer to spiritual life, that will benefit us eternally in our next life. And if we do that perfectly, we'll be able to rejoin Krishna in his world. So, although the grief is there, the pain is there, there's also this great, great solace of Krishna's teachings from Bhagavad Gita, very basic teachings that make just complete sense when we apply them to our lives. They're completely relevant and applicable, especially now at this time of great suffering and misery, with so much disease and death all around us. So we should turn to these teachings as a source of refuge and solace, and really depend on them, depend on Krishna more and more. Use this opportunity to come closer to Krishna.
Actually, in my group, there is they're absolutely new to IskCon, as I told you earlier also. They are actually joined me in the last lockdown, when the last lockdown started in India in 2020, March 2020. So they all joined me, and they didn't know about IskCon, anything about it. So I trained them for the Mangalarti, for the Japa sessions. So they all get up in the morning at 5 a.m., most of them. There are like 1,200 people on the group, but they are there, but out of them 200, 250 are very sincere. They join me up in the morning. So they join for the Japa session at 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. They do Japa with me, and then in the evening we have a Gita class with them, the Bhagavatam class and the Gita class. We take the quotes from there, and then these days it's all about anxiety and pain and suffering. We are getting all the quotes from what Krishna says about it, and they are benefiting from it. I would say that's why the number is increasing every day. But then, it may seem self-glorification, but I really want to preach. That's it. It's not that I really want to. But it is, one thing is very much they ask again and again is that they agree to it. Yes, we agree to what Krishna is saying and everything is right. But then when the time comes, like when it is very heavy on them, they forget it. When it's deeply, they forget what they have learned. So just give them some tips that how they can remember that thing when the testing time is there. How they can remember, yes, how they can be strong in the testing times.
Yeah, the testing time is when we really need association of devotees whom we respect. Because then in the midst of our sorrow and our darkness and our anguish, we turn to those devotees and they can remind us of these beautiful teachings from Lord Shri Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And we can rest assured that those people who are loved by us, who are no longer with us, that we can pray for them. It's always beneficial to pray for them sincerely, that they meaning the soul, will travel on and have another opportunity to come closer to Krishna, come closer to his teachings, come progress in spiritual life. This is the best thing we can do, and we should never underestimate the power of prayer, because Krishna is ultimately Ishwar. He is controlling everything. And if we can please him, then we can also please others. And he is pleased by sincere, heartfelt prayer. It's not that he doesn't hear, he does hear. And if the prayer is sincere, even a simple prayer, it doesn't have to be complex Sanskrit prayers. Even a simple prayer, spoken from the heart with sincerity and seriousness, to benefit the one that we've lost, or the one who is ill, that is heard by the Lord. And it's good for us, it's good for the person who's suffering, because Krishna is pleased. So that is the whole idea of our lives, simply to please Krishna, to please the spiritual master. And then we will feel, inexplicably, we will feel more calm, we will feel more satisfied ourselves.
Thank you so much, Ma. It's wonderful to hear from you, and really how simplified you have given the Prabhupada's quotes. Amazingly you have told them. I would like to ask you one thing more, that you have been so close to Prabhupada, and the books are the basis. Prabhupada's quote is there that yes, books are the basis. How do you feel one should go ahead with the book distribution? What motto how should we motivate ourselves for book distribution in this pandemic, especially? How we can again, last year so they were all full of enthusiasm, but this year again their morale is getting down because of it's come back. It is hitting hard now. The COVID has hit hard again. So how do they motivate themselves for book distribution now?
Mm. Well, if they've come closer to Srila Prabhupada, perhaps by reading his biography or by seeing the Hare Krishna film about him, they should know, you should know, we should all know that Prabhupada was very keen not only on writing the books, also printing the books, and also us reading the books.
Yeah, that's right.
Sometimes he would chastise us and said, he would say, these books are not just for distribution, but they're also for you to read. You meaning his followers,
Yes.
for us to read.
That's
So
right.
as we do read them, and we get the wealth that he's offered in the books, then very naturally we want to share that with others. And that pleases Prabhupada. There can be no doubt that Prabhupada is pleased by the activity of his followers, both assimilating what he's put in his books and trying to give that beautiful culture to others, because it benefits both ways. It benefits us and it benefits the people that receive the books. And even if they don't read them at first, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, that's Krishna. If they welcome Krishna into their home, they put Krishna in the terms of the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, on their shelves, there's all of a sudden there's Krishna in their home. And maybe they at some point will read, or some relative will read, even a friend comes and says, what is this? And so in that way, this message continues to be spread. So it's one of those things they call a win-win. You've heard that expression. Everyone wins in that way. It's a glorious way to spend our time and our energy, and to use our whatever cleverness and intelligence we have as best we can to both read the books and to give them to others.
It's wonderful what you say. Yes, we should read the books. That's the primary. If we read it, of course, we would love to share it. That's what happened with me. Like when I joined 22 years back, yesterday somebody was, just a minute, mute everybody, Guru Shakti. So I was just remembering that was the 15th, I'll unmute myself. 15th of May 1999, that was the first trip to Vrindavan I had in my life. Me and my Prabhu, my husband, we visited Vrindavan for the first time in 1999. 15th May 1999. The first trip to Vrindavan, and it was to Hare Krishna temple. The temple of the Angrezon ka mandir, they said. The temple of the English. So I visited that temple, and I was in pain at that time. And when I reached there, it was the first time I chanted my first round on the Samadhi. That was Prabhupada's Samadhi. There was somebody there, a devotee was there, and he took me around on the Samadhi, upstairs on the first floor, around the Samadhi. He handed me the pamphlet with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on it, and he asked me to step on every lotus flower and chant. And I and my husband, I remember, both of us chanted the first round there. And we stayed till the evening. It was morning, we had gone at 10 o'clock, and we stayed till the evening there. And we attended the evening Aarti, God Aarti, and the first time I chanted 16 complete rounds there. I started the chanting 16 rounds from there that day itself. And that was Prabhupada's blessing. And I would share with you that I got I had a lot of questions in my mind at that time. Who are we? Why are we born? And all that. And those questions, they all came to me in Prabhupada quarters. The answers came to me there. The devotee who was taking us around, and he was telling me the philosophy of Prabhupada also, the books, what they hold in the Bhagavad Gita. I had never read Bhagavad Gita at that time. So he was telling me about the Bhagavad Gita, and he was telling me about what Prabhupada has, his mission and how he established IskCon. And then it was like all the answers I was getting all the answers to my questions. And that was the day we both of us came back and we became devotees from that day onwards. So that's what Prabhupada, that's the power of Prabhupada that I say. The energy and the power, it's there. That's the miracle he has done. And many of us are the living examples. You, I, and others, hundreds of thousands more are the living examples of his mercy, of the miracle he has done. And I would really want you also to now, Prabhu, that it's that you my group also would like to ask questions to you, and I would put direct to them. They can ask you, and in the meantime, I would like you to more focus on the online book distribution now. How they can do? They are also stuck in their homes. All of these, so how they can go ahead with that now? Like I convinced them last year. We were together. Now, as the sorrow is more, I said, your words will again what you said, that of course that will bring solace. They will bring Krishna to their homes if they bring Gita or the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam to their homes. But now when they are with their friends online, it's only online communication is left these days. So how do they go ahead with convincing them online? What should they take in their minds speaking to others when they talk about Srila Prabhupada and the Bhagavad Gita? Just focus a bit on that.
Yes, sure. I think that many of you, the people are from India, yeah? Indian origin.
Yes.
So Bhagavad Gita won't be foreign, or Srimad Bhagavatam won't be foreign. So it's a matter that you're revitalizing your very own roots, your own culture. That your own culture is very pure and very rich and has a tremendous amount to offer to each and every person, not just in your culture, in all cultures, but the advantage is that you're already from that culture. So you're not starting from zero, but people are already aware of the richness, the wealth that's there. And I think that we tend to get distracted by modernity, that we think that things will make us happy and money will make us happy. And these are hollow aspirations. These things will not make us happy. And I think if you start a conversation on that ground, and then introduce this idea that we have this transcendent knowledge that will actually reawaken our identity and answer these deep questions that we're having. What is the purpose of life? Who am I? Why am I suffering? What is this world meant for? These things, they're niggling questions in people's minds. That's why we have this human birth, just to answer and ask these serious questions. So if you start a conversation, which is not, of course, the ordinary conversation, how are you? It's quite a bit deeper, but I think it's an important conversation to open up with these people that may have some interest in Srila Prabhupada's books, and say how much you have found. That's so important. This is a personal testimonial. How much you have found in these books that satisfy these very important questions that people very often leave aside, they neglect. And so from that type of conversation, you can arouse an interest in what Prabhupada has to offer. And from there, the books go out.
Wonderful.
It's really, really based on our own enthusiasm. If we're enthusiastic, if we're inspired, the people on the other end of the phone or the Zoom or whatever it is will feel that.
That's right.
And they'll also be looking for it. People are looking for inspiration and direction and answers to these questions. Why are we suffering so much?
That's it.
And these books have those answers, and very sound answers, satisfying answers. So they're so important now, more than ever. They're important.
Thank you so much. You're absolutely correct. That's right. Absolutely right. These are the questions that one should be asking themselves, and if they have found something in the last 1 year with me, they can really go ahead and convince others for that. And when we convince, as you have already said, yes, when we convince others, we please our spiritual master, we please Srila Prabhupada, we please the Acharyas, we please Krishna. That's wonderful. Now I would ask them if anybody is interested to ask question, please go ahead. You can put up your hands and Guru Shakti can make you. You can please ask questions. There is the meantime, I would just check the chat also. I would,
Poonam Mehta has a question. Poonam Mehta.
yeah, Poonam Mehta. Please go
Hare
ahead.
Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
very well.
My question to you is, how would you address the children of non-devotees who come across, especially with the modern world?
Why your voice is echoing?
Yeah, there's an echo.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes, say. Yes, Poonam, go ahead.
Can you,
Your
can you
question?
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
My question to you is, how do you address the children of non-devotees whom you come across, especially with the modern background?
How do you address the children of
I-
non-devotees,
Uh,
especially with a modern background? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I think so she meant. She means how we actually, how she can train her children into Krishna consciousness as she's a new devotee herself.
Okay. Do we know how old the children are that are?
She's got a 10-year-old son, I believe, and an older daughter. She's, I think so, 17 years old. Yes, Poonam, your daughter is, how old is your daughter? Can't hear you. You are muted. No. She has an older daughter and son is 10 year old. He's just turned 10 today. I know that. She lives in Jodhpur. She doesn't live in Delhi. She lives in Jodhpur.
Well, with younger children, it's easier. We have many children's books, Bhagavad Gita for children, and Rudha Devi Dasi has made a Srimad Bhagavatam for children. So at that younger age, you can introduce them to Krishna's pastimes, which are so much fun for children, and even to Krishna's philosophy. With the teenagers, it's more challenging because as the child grows, the influence of the parents becomes less and less, and the influence of their peers becomes more and more.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really important for a teenage child. I'm speaking more of Western children. Perhaps it's different for Indian children.
It's the
Perhaps
same.
not.
It's same here
It's the
also.
same.
Kids are very much advanced these days, like the Westerners. They copy the Westerners a lot.
Yeah, right. It used to be different, but now it's the same. So for teenage children, it's really important, I would say, almost essential, to put them in contact with devotee children their age. I'm not sure what you have in India, but I can say in the UK, there's a group called Pandavasena, which is very active, all youth,
Yeah.
like 25 and under. I think they started 12, I think. And they have different programs for different age groups. And so when the child goes into that age group amongst devotees and they say, oh my goodness, these children are chanting, these children are learning shlokas, these children are eating prasadam, and that becomes the thing to do. Because the peer pressure is just so incredibly strong at that teenage time. And so you really need to find friends that are interested in the spiritual life that they can bond with, and it may become influenced favorably in that way.
That's right. That's absolutely right, you said.
That's an possible.
Yeah, there's another question that's come up. How to convince a person who quotes Jio Jeva said Jeevanam when we explain not to eat meat. She says, how to convince a person to not to eat meat? She's an initiated devotee who's asking. She's Bhakti Charu Maharaj disciple from Gujarat. She's asking this question.
Mataji is my nephew. He always argue with that words, when I ask him to quit the meat. So, it's hard to convince, I'm getting out there. So.
Yeah, Jiva, jivasya jivana means that one living entity is food for another. So that's true. One living entity is food for another. We eat grains, and the grains are also a living entity, a jiva. So, but before we eat, we offer. So that we don't deny the truth of that statement. But living entities designate foods for them according to the nature of the living entity. I mean, you can look at material, logical reasoning that according to our teeth, according to our digestive tract, meat is not favorable for us. But we also like to look at the higher truth that Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, offer me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, and these I will accept. So from the highest perspective, we don't eat meat because it's not offerable to Krishna, and we only want to eat what is offerable to Krishna. So that's the higher perspective. If you go to the material analysis, you could see that the tiger is eating meat, but the tiger's teeth are especially suited for biting into flesh and tearing flesh. Our teeth are not like that. Neither our digestive system is like that. So it's actually detrimental health-wise for us to eat meat. And the consequences of that are quite severe. In the West now, health problem is a huge issue, and some part of that, probably a large part, is due to these improper eating habits, as well as drinking habits, as well as smoking habits, and all sorts of bad habits that adversely affect people's health. But yeah, so there are different ways you can approach it, but also you can approach it from the idea of ecology, that this meat industry is so detrimental to the planet, so detrimental. What you have, these huge slaughterhouses, you can see they'll have acres of cows, acres of turkeys or chickens, and the cruelty of it and the way it decimates our planet. I mean, there's just no defense for it, especially when you have incredibly delectable dishes that can be offered to Krishna and satisfy us, not only in terms of the palate, but also in terms of the needs of the body. There's really no excuse for meat eating. It's simply done either out of habit in the West, or perhaps in the East out of defiance of the tradition of the culture. But either way, it's so unattractive. I mean, we do have devotees that are sometimes weak in following the principles that Prabhupada has outlined, but very, very rarely do they revert to meat eating. It becomes so abhorrent. The very idea of killing a living entity, a sentient being, for my palate, just the sight of it and the smell of meat becomes abhorrent.
That's right.
It's truly a higher taste to take Krishna prasadam, that you never want to eat anything else. And to see, sometimes we're on the plane or train and we see people, and it's just horrible to witness.
That's right. That's absolutely right what he said. And there was a question from Malaysia, Lena Gemini from Malaysia. Kuala Lumpur. She was asking the same. You have answered it earlier. Her daughter is studying medicine, and she keeps on asking so many questions. Why this? Why not having this? Why should not we eat this or that? And she says it's very difficult for the this age group. It's very difficult to convince them. Younger the children, they will listen to parents, but older they grow, it's very hard. So that's why, but you have already answered that question previously too, when you answered Poonam. Now there is another question that in the morning when they sit for chanting, the mind wanders away. That's actually the common question for everybody, they say, ask. That mind wanders away. So how to bring the mind back to the chanting?
Yeah, the mind wanders, that's what the mind does. Accepting and rejecting, hankering and lamenting. That's the business of the mind. And the business of the intelligence is to always gently bring it back. And we don't have to feel guilty because the mind is doing what it will. It's not that we have to berate ourselves, but just continually and patiently bring it back to the holy name. As often as it wanders away, that many times we bring it back again and again. And that with that enthusiasm and determination and patience, we will please Krishna, and then the mind will become increasingly tamed and less of a rascal,
That's right.
less obstinate, less difficult. But never ever give up, because we want to make the mind a friend and help us
That's
in
right.
our service and in our chanting. So
Absolutely.
never ever give up. Just keep at it.
Absolutely right what you said. It's so nice to hear from you, because when somebody senior says out, it has a lot of effect. And there's another question from Priyanka. She's asking how to overcome the problem when we preach person for having a Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita at their place, and they say it's not their age to have them and read them, when they had their wrong misconceptions about Krishna due to their other prevailing Bhagavad Gitas in the market. So that is a question, that it's difficult to convince people. They have misconceptions about Bhagavad Gita. As they often say that they should not keep even the picture of the war at home, the Kurukshetra battle. They should not keep these pictures at home, so it will bring bad. All at home also there will be no peace if you keep these pictures at home. If you keep a Bhagavad Gita at home, you will not have peace, because it is the story about a war. Then these misconceptions are there. But of course, as you have already answered, if we read the books, all the misconceptions will go away gradually, and then we can convince others. If we read them, then only we can share them. That's it. Your answer, you've already answered in your, even the discourse you have given all this. And there's another, somebody says, yes, a simple question she's asking, that can I do aarti while sitting? That if she's not feeling well in the morning, we can do the aarti while sitting. She's asking that question. So I would like you to answer that.
Yes, certainly. If you feel uncomfortable, there's some reason why you can't stand, Krishna will certainly understand that and accept the arti sitting also. There's a beautiful story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about a devotee who, he didn't have much means, but he had a very controlled mind. And within his mind, as Lord Chaitanya was traveling, he built a road for the Lord to walk on. But it was not an ordinary road. It had stemless flowers on it. So the Lord would walk on stemless flowers. And on the sides were lakes and gardens on both sides. Lord Chaitanya could enjoy as he walked. And then at a certain point, while he was building this road, the devotee said, "Oh, the Lord will not go past Kanai Natasala," a certain place in Bengal. And everyone was surprised, because his meditation at that point broke. So he was building this road in his mind, and the Lord accepted it, even though it was only in his mind. So what to speak of doing arti sitting down? We can even offer within our minds, if we have that pure intent and that focus, and the Lord will also offer that, even what's offered within our minds. You'll find in the Nectar of Devotion a beautiful story also about a poor Brahmin who used to go to discourses about seva, service to the Lord. So at one of these discourses, he heard this, that you can offer also within your mind. And so he would meditate on making beautiful preparations for the Lord, beautiful dishes, different styles of sabji and dals. And at one point he made sweet rice for the Lord. He was cooking it down in his mind and making it thick. And he wanted to offer it, but he thought it might be too hot, because sweet rice is best if it's offered cool. So in his mind, he just touched it with his finger. And then he looked at his finger, and his finger was burnt. This was all going on in his mind. And in Vaikuntha, Narayan was there with Lakshmi, and Narayan started to laugh. And Lakshmi said, "Why are you laughing?" And it was because of this pastime that the Lord had made his finger burnt, even though this whole entire offering was in his mind. So yes, if our mind is pure, talking about controlling our mind, if we control our mind and it's pure, we can do incredible things with our mind. It's the mind, mind you, that's going to take us to our next body. So it's a good idea to try to train it up while we're in this body. When this gross body passes away, we're left with a subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And it's the mind that carries us to the next body. So we really want to work on controlling the mind and making it our friend and uniting it with Krishna.
Thank you so much for reminding those beautiful stories. They are so beautiful when we recollect them. Really, it refreshes our mind. Yes, Mansik Seva we can do, provided we are pure. Yes. And there is another question, Vishaka Prabhu. They say, Hare Krishna Mataji Pamo. My question is how a devotee should react when someone says, I don't want to be a part of book distribution, especially when they have been attending Sangha for 8 years or so. Also, it's disheartening to see when people say we don't need temples. How would you justify, Vishaka Mataji, that we need temples?
Yeah, the temple is a wonderful place to come together, not only to worship Krishna and to glorify him by chanting and kirtan and artis and dressing and associating with devotees. So the temple is a wonderful opportunity, an oasis Prabhupada has given us in this material world so we can drink the nectar of spiritual life. So it's a little confusing why somebody would say we don't need temples unless they can make their home into a temple.
That's it.
Let them invite devotees there and have beautiful deities that they serve wonderfully and offer the bhoga to, and then serve the devotees and let the home become a temple. That's also very wonderful. So yeah, we need places where we can associate with devotees, whether you want to call them a temple or an ashram or a home. You know, the Grihastha ashram is also an ashram. So but association is just so important for all of us. We shouldn't think that we can go it alone. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says that we need the association of devotees, we need the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, we need deity worship. These things are necessary for us to nurture our spiritual life. It's like watering a seedling. So you can say, what's the use of water? Let water just come from the sky. Well, maybe it'll be a dry month. So why not give it a little water? So similarly with our spiritual lives, why not go to the temple? Or if that's inconvenient or don't feel welcome at the temple, make your home a temple.
Yeah.
And invite people to come and honor them for coming and share what you've learned.
Thank you so much for enlightening them for the need of the temple. Yes. And the last question I would put you to is that somebody is asking, her daughter is appearing she's very busy in the studies. She is actually quite old, like 23 or 20, I think so. She's in her 20s, early 20s. She's studying hard, so it's very difficult. She wants to carry on the spiritual life also, but sometimes it's very difficult for her. So studies is a kind of separation from Lord Shri Krishna. So how could one balance the two at the same time, she's saying? She's asking this. How can one balance?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, there are phases in our lives, I know, especially in India, there's so much pressure at a certain time, around exam time.
Yeah.
For the students, it's incredible tension
Yeah.
that's created by these exam things. So it becomes very difficult. But I would urge you as far as possible just to get up a little bit earlier in your day. And those first as much time as you can, focus on your chanting, perhaps read a shloka, read a page, just to set you in the proper mindset for the day, and have the resource or the hope or the resolve. Let's say the resolve that when your studies are finished, that then you'll apply yourself for sure. Then you'll apply yourself much more fully. Now, during this phase of your life, you're limited as far as what you can do. And it maybe it's just be a little bit in the morning when you have time for chanting and studying just a little, just to set your mind for that day. But as your studies are completed, then you will give you that time and express your gratitude to the Lord more fully.
Yeah, absolutely. There is another, Prabhu, just two questions, short questions, and then we'll end the session. There is Nikita Baldawa. She says that she reads the shlokas in Sanskrit daily and chants Mahamantra, but still feels sometimes that she's lost and she gets angry on little things and then she regrets later. How can she get out of this habit of not being angry? How can she make her mind stable? She's asking.
Yeah, the mind is challenging, there's no doubt. I think it's very important to be patient with ourselves. Who knows how many lifetimes we've been in this material world. We're working against a long series of different births. So it's no wonder that it's a struggle, not just for you, but for all of us in different ways. So certainly be patient with yourself. Try to learn from your mistakes. Then if you have a friend that you can exchange with, that, this happened today, someone said this or did this, and I got angry again. And just to express that to a friend, or even writing it in a journal, I think, so that you can reflect on it.
That's it.
And see what triggered this anger. And so that next time it'll be less of a trigger, or maybe not a trigger. So these things could be helpful, these kind of reflections. And of course, continuing the chanting, continuing the process. It's like the analogy is given, it's like being in the shower. It's not that in the first few seconds, all the dirt is washed from us. It may take some minutes in the shower. So similarly, it's not all of a sudden that we can be rid of anger and lust and greed and envy and so forth. But if we stay in the shower of Krishna consciousness, these things will be washed from us. We need to have that confidence that our heart will become cleansed of these undesirable characteristics.
Thank you so much for enlightening. Really, my group they are all neophytes, and it's wonderful that they're getting enlightened by you. I really, they want to ask you more and more. They are thanking you for the precious knowledge that you have bestowed on them, and they are grateful to you. I'm just reading their feedback, and they're really obliged that you took a time and you are here, and they're all thanking you. It's all in the chat box. They are thanking you a lot, Visaka Prabhu. They said they loved your. And there is another one. She's saying she's from London only, and she says, "Do you accept a 2-year-old in the Pandava Seva Sena?" She's in too hurry.
I'm not sure the youngest, that they keep extending the ages. She could inquire what the youngest is now.
Yeah.
They are extending their programs and making them for younger and younger people. But not a
2-year-old. That's right. There is Parul Mehta.
I really want to thank you for arranging the Sangha and enlivening these devotees as you have been and giving them knowledge. It's really glorious. Thank you so much.
It's all your blessings. It's all the blessings of the senior Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. And really, I'm so glad to have been with you today on this beautiful program and the beautiful journey of your life, knowing right from your mouth. It was wonderful to hear it. And thanks a lot to Guru Shakti and you for being with me here and with my group. They all loved it. And many are watching on the YouTube, they've also said, and I'm recording the session for them on the YouTube also. It'll be there. So thank you very much. Thank you. And all glories to you and your service. We really, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Oh. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Everybody says. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah. Please, you can do the Mangal Dwani. Please, Mataji. You can lead us in the Dwani.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you for all the things. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare
Krishna Mataji.
Thank you. So we end the session here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Raman Bhagwan ki jai. Shri Radha Sham Sundar Bhagwan ki jai. Shri Gaunitai ki jai. Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani ki jai. Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai. Hari Bol. Thank you, Mataji. All glories to Visaka Prabhu and her service. All glories to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.